Don't worry, you will prosper. Let me tell you something that might sound strange at first. Most people aren't stuck because they lack money, opportunities, or talent. They're stuck because they're too tired inside. Tired of trying, of praying, of striving and seeing no results. And it's precisely at this point that the biggest silent lie is born. Maybe thriving isn't for me. But what if I told you that all this anxiety is actually a sign that something is about to change? Here's the paradox. The more you worry, the less space you create to thrive. It seems unfair, I know. The world teaches you to run, compete, grit your teeth, and force results. But real prosperity doesn't come from rushing. It comes from alignment. It's not about running faster. It's about starting to walk in the right direction. And almost no one talks about it that way. Perhaps you came here looking for a financial answer, but what you'll find is something deeper. Because thriving isn't just about earning more, it's about stopping the loss of energy, peace, and clarity. It's about learning to organize your life from the inside out before demanding change on the outside. And when that happens, money, opportunities, and connections begin to emerge almost as a consequence. So stay with me. Not because I'm going to promise you easy riches, I won't do that, but because if you understand what's behind true prosperity, you'll never look at your life the same way again. Sometimes God doesn't change the scenery first. He changes consciousness. And when consciousness changes, everything follows. You didn't find this video by chance. The sign and the right moment. Have you ever noticed how sometimes life seems like a dead end? You try, you fight, you pray, and yet it seems like nothing moves. But here's a detail that almost no one tells you. When God is working, He rarely makes a sound. He moves the pieces behind the scenes like a chess master you don't even see, but you feel the board shifting. And let me tell you this very directly. If this message has crossed your path now, it has weight. It's not luck. It's not a cute coincidence. It's the kind of encounter that happens when the heart is already ready to listen. And look, most people miss these signs because they're waiting for a glaring miracle, a flash of light in the sky, a trumpet of the apocalypse. Meanwhile, God usually speaks through simple ideas, unlikely connections, and that strange feeling of, I needed to hear exactly this. Now, pay attention. Prosperity with God doesn't begin in your pocket. It begins with direction. Before He gives you more, He gives you clarity. Before He changes the scenery, He changes your understanding of the scenery. And if today you felt relief just hearing, "Don't worry," that could be the beginning of a turning point. But there's a detail that separates those who live the promise from those who live the testimony. The next step isn't asking for more. It's preparing the space. Because without realizing it, many people even want to prosper. They just don't want to deal with the mess that prevents the blessing from staying. God does not bless chaos. Order as the gateway to prosperity. There's a pattern almost no one wants to face. Prosperity doesn't enter where chaos reigns. Not because God is rigid or distant, but because He is consistent. He works with order, rhythm, and structure. When life is chaotic, mind, routine, finances, emotions, blessings may come close, but they can't find a place to stay. It's simple, but not easy. Think about it. A disorganized house can't receive visitors in peace. There's always rushing around, stress, that wait a minute, everything's out of place. Now, apply that to life. When the mind is overloaded, when the routine is pure improvisation, when money comes and goes without direction, prosperity becomes a quick visit, not a permanent one. And God doesn't work with quick visits. He works with building something. A very practical example. People who pray for financial growth but don't know how much they spend each month. They ask for opportunities but wake up without a schedule, without a plan, without focus. It's not a lack of faith. It's a lack of alignment. Sometimes the first miracle isn't earning more. It's organizing what you already have. writing down expenses, setting schedules, creating a simple routine of prayer and reading. Nothing glamorous, and precisely for that reason, powerful. And here's a point that connects everything. When you start to put things in order on the outside, something gets organized on the inside. The mind calms down, the vision clears, and better decisions begin to emerge almost naturally. It's as if God were saying, "Now you can trust more." But this raises an inevitable question. If order opens doors, what is the invisible habit that sustains this order every day? That's where the next point starts to change the game. Daily discipline. The invisible habit of those who thrive. There's a silent truth that almost no one likes to hear. Prosperity doesn't come from grand events. It comes from small habits repeated every day. It's not the extraordinary day that changes your life. It's the ordinary routine well lived. Napoleon Hill already said something along these lines, and practice confirms it. What you do when no one is watching defines where you end up when everyone is watching. Notice how truly prosperous people live. They don't wake up motivated every day, but they show up anyway. They pray even when they don't feel like it, organize their schedules even when they're tired, and take care of their bodies even when they have no free time. Discipline isn't rigidity. It's a commitment to the future. It's saying no now so you don't regret it later. A simple and applicable example: waking up 20 minutes earlier, 10 minutes to pray or quiet the mind, 5 to plan the day, 5 to give thanks. It seems like little, almost silly. But this habit changes decisions throughout the entire day. Another example: daily reading, even if it's just 2 pages. Good books for that: Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon Proverbs. A perfect combination of intellect, practice, and wisdom. The curious thing is that discipline creates something even more powerful than results. It creates confidence. You begin to trust yourself. And when that happens, something spiritual moves, because God trusts those who govern themselves. But discipline without faith becomes a burden. So the question that remains is how to transform discipline into something light, that flows, and not into a prison. That's exactly where applied faith comes into play. Applied faith: when believing stops being talk and becomes action. Many people confuse faith with emotion. They believe that faith is feeling goosebumps, crying during a prayer, or being cheered up by a beautiful message. But true faith appears after the emotion passes. It reveals itself in what a person does when no one is motivating them, when there is no sign that things will work out. That's the real deal. Applied faith means acting as if you already understand that God is in control, even without seeing immediate results. It's continuing to study when the opportunity hasn't yet arisen. It's organizing your finances even with little money. It's treating people well even when life is tough. It seems contradictory, almost counterintuitive, but that's exactly how the invisible begins to move. A very down-to-earth example: someone who believes they will prosper financially, but continues to spend everything impulsively, without planning anything. That's not faith. It's just wishful thinking. Applied faith would be setting aside a small amount, even if symbolic, as if saying, "I believe this will grow." Another example: someone who prays for open doors, but doesn't send out resumes, doesn't improve their skills, doesn't prepare themselves. Faith always goes hand in hand with action. And here's the key point: when you act in faith, your mind begins to align with that decision. Fear loses ground, doubt speaks less, and confidence grows. But this confidence needs to be sustained by something deeper. Otherwise, it wavers. And that's exactly why the next step isn't just acting differently. It's healing the relationship you have with money and with prosperity itself. Healing your relationship with money. From guilt and fear to tool and purpose. For a long time, many people have learned that money is something dirty, dangerous, or even incompatible with spirituality. And this creates enormous internal confusion. A person prays for prosperity, but when the money starts to appear, guilt, fear of losing it, and the feeling of not deserving it come along with it. That inner conflict silently blocks the flow. Money in itself is neither good nor bad. It's a magnifying glass. It amplifies who you already are. In the hands of someone disorganized, it becomes a problem. In the hands of someone organized, it becomes a solution. The problem has never been having money, it's letting money take the wheel. Healthy prosperity happens when money becomes a tool, not an identity. A very real example: people who earn more but continue to live in financial hardship because they never learned how to manage their money. They don't track expenses. They don't plan. They don't set priorities. Healing your relationship with money starts with simple actions: looking at numbers without fear, being grateful for income, setting aside money before spending. Small practices that completely change the energy of your financial relationship. When you begin to honor money as a provision and not as a threat, something changes within. The mind relaxes, decisions become clearer, and opportunities begin to arise more naturally. But there's an even deeper level to this healing, when money ceases to be the focus and becomes a consequence. And that's where purpose and mission come into play, elevating everything to another level. Purpose before profit. Why money starts following you. There's a silent turning point that happens when someone stops asking, "How much does this pay?" and starts asking, "Who does this help?" At that point, something curious happens. Money stops being chased and starts appearing. Sounds crazy, but it works. True prosperity is a consequence of usefulness, not obsession with gain. When a person aligns their work with purpose, they naturally deliver more value. And value always finds reward. Think of professionals who solve real problems, help people, and make someone's life easier. They don't need to chase clients all the time. They are sought after. The same principle applies in any field. When you serve well, the flow comes. A simple example: someone who masters a skill, cooking, teaching, organizing, selling, and decides to do it with excellence, thinking about serving, not just earning. This person studies more, improves processes, listens to feedback. The result? Constant growth. Good books that help with this are The Monk and the Executive and Essentialism, because both teach you to focus on what truly makes an impact. The detail that few realize is that purpose isn't something grand or mystical. Sometimes it's simply doing what's already within your power in the best way possible. And when that happens, something starts to align internally. But to sustain this growth, there's a final element that determines whether prosperity comes with peace or with burden. That's exactly what we'll explore in the next point. Thriving in peace. The difference between getting rich and living in abundance. There's a huge difference between getting rich and prospering, and few people realize this in time. Getting rich can happen quickly, with noise, pressure, and anxiety. Prospering, on the other hand, happens with peace, consistency, and ease. It's when a person grows without losing sleep, without losing faith, and without losing who they are. That's the real win. Prosperity with peace is when money comes in but doesn't dominate, when work grows but doesn't steal your life, when opportunities appear but don't distract you from what's essential. You begin to realize that not every open door needs to be walked through. Some come only to test your maturity, and discernment becomes one of the most valuable assets of those who prosper. A very common example: someone receives a job offer that pays more, but requires sacrificing health, family, or values. A wealthy person would say, "Accept." A prosperous person asks, "Does this bring me closer to or further away from the life I want to live?" Truly prosperous people choose based on peace, not just financial return. They know that what costs the soul is too expensive. And here's the key point: peace isn't the ultimate prize of prosperity. It's a sign that you're on the right track. When there's too much haste, too much anxiety, and constant fear, something is out of alignment. This sets the stage for an inevitable question that closes the whole cycle. After aligning mind, habits, faith, money, and purpose, how do you live this new phase without regressing? That's exactly where everything comes together. The new life. Maintaining the flow without regressing to the old pattern. There's a crucial moment that almost no one notices when they start to prosper. It's not when the money arrives, it's when the fear goes away. That's when the new life truly begins. Because many people change their external circumstances, but internally they keep the same old mindset, and that, sooner or later, pulls everything back down. Maintaining prosperity isn't about trying harder, it's about sustaining who you've become. The new life demands new standards, new conversations, new decisions, new boundaries. You can't live in abundance with scarcity habits. You can't walk lightly carrying old beliefs. To prosper is to learn not to sabotage what God is building. A real-life example: people who improve financially but continue to surround themselves with negativity, complaining, and fear. Gradually, the mind adjusts downwards again. The new life calls for simple vigilance, not paranoia. Be mindful of what you consume. Content, conversations, environments, because all of this either feeds or weakens the flow. And when you realize that prosperity is a daily journey, not a one-off event, something profoundly changes. You stop chasing after it and start walking steadily. But now comes the most delicate part of all: how to bring all of this together into a single, clear vision that makes sense to those who have been watching from the beginning. That's exactly where the introduction needs to tie everything together before closing the cycle. Prosperity is not a destination. It's a daily decision. Now let me ask you something very direct, without beating around the bush. After everything you've heard, what will truly change when this video ends? Because knowledge without application becomes just another pretty piece of content that excites you for a few minutes and then fades into the routine. Prosperity begins when you decide to act differently. Today, not when everything is perfect. Think honestly, what in your life needs order right now? Your mind, your finances, your routine, your habits? What small adjustment can you make today that proves to yourself that this message wasn't just inspiration, but guidance? Sometimes it's not about doing something big, it's about stopping postponing the obvious. Prosperity loves consistency, not empty promises. And let me provoke you a little. If 6 months from now your life is exactly the same, will you say it was a lack of opportunity or a lack of decision? Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. God has already done his part many times. The next step is almost always in your hands. The question is, will you continue waiting for a bigger sign, or will you act on what you've already understood? If this video resonated with you, write in the comments, "I choose to thrive with awareness and peace." This isn't just interaction, it's a public commitment to yourself. And if you want to continue learning how to thrive without losing your soul, without living anxiously, and without falling into the same cycles, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Because here we don't just teach you how to earn more, we teach you how to live better.